Phil Molyneaux is one of our consultant colleagues who is also a senior lecturer at Imperial and is our CRF director, heavy influenced in research. So he's a good friend, and I'll pass him over to chair our last session. Phil, over to you.
Thanks, Vasilis. I get the unenviable job of trying to bring us home on time, and we're already 7 minutes late, and Professor Wells is the first speaker, so wish me luck. This session is focused on research, and research in sarcoidosis has been a poor relative. Certainly clinical-based research and new therapeutic-based research has been somewhat of a poor relative to other areas of pulmonary fibrosis, but that is changing, and there are new studies coming through looking at sarcoid, and not just pulmonary sarcoid as well. So the future is bright. There's different types of research, and we're going to hear from Athol initially about the research aims and strategies across the hospital, and then Henry's going to come in and talk to us from a Sarcoidosis UK strategy. So Athol, if I can hand over to you.
Yes, you can. Can you see my slides?
I can see 14 slides potentially, Professor Wells.
Yeah, the title slide doesn't count, and Vasilis has obligingly given some of my talk already today, so okay. I can keep this very short. And in the interest of time, I just want to run through broad themes we are pursuing and intend to pursue as Brompton Sarcoid Research Strategy. And instead of taking you through the slide, I'm going to go over each in order. Let me jump to slide 3. That's in about 20 seconds, I think. So this is going quite well. Well, we've talked about reasons to treat sarcoidosis, and broadly, what do people want? Well, they would like to live longer and feel better, and I've yet to find somebody who comes up with a third thing from their point of view. So we have a major focus on identifying dangerous disease, ideally to use treatment early if disease is dangerous, but unnecessary treatment is already dangerous. Now, Vasilis has shown these data already, which is very nice. We've developed a simple lung function staging system that in 1,200 patients, and this has been validated in another cohort of over 1,000, and then validated again in over 300 patients from Paris with more major fibrosis on CT. And you can see how effectively it's possible to look at likely future behavior of disease. And I will just say that this completely trumps the traditional chest X-ray staging system. Once you know with 2 lung function variables, whether you have high or low risk disease, and looking and trying to score X-rays according to scattering stage doesn't help. Now, what we should be able to do with this in the future is to understand dangerous disease better, study what the features are on CT, think about the early diagnosis of pulmonary hypertension, work out how to investigate in a higher risk group, and above all, finding the right thresholds to treat before disease becomes dangerous. So risk factors that identify future dangerous disease. Don't wait to treat until the train has left the station. And it's apposite to just cover quickly current and pending treatment trials that will come through our unit now that COVID permits this. And so, again, in the interests of time, a study that is focused on pulmonary hypertension, a study that may be more focused on a pathway from inflammation to fibrosis and fibrogenesis, and a study of an agent. These drug names were always impossible, aren't they? Efzofitimod. A study of an agent that may be more geared to severe inflammatory disease, possibly the sort of disease that hasn't necessarily scarred. So a range of studies, and I must quickly mention also pulmonary hypertension work both in our unit and with the huge collaboration of the Brompton pulmonary hypertension team. And we had Laura giving a nice talk earlier today. So Vasilis has put through a large registry, and this has had a very major input into the International Pulmonary Hypertension Registry. Insights from that have driven international guidelines for sarcoid pulmonary hypertension just published. Now, the next item is, how do we grade behavior in pulmonary sarcoid? And this may look complex, but basically all forms of interstitial lung disease are just 5 disorders in the way in which they behave. And this classification has been developed over 20 years. And to take you from complexity in the interests of time, this classification is a common sense classification. What are you going to do about it when you're confronted by a disease process? So the 5 categories are: we can leave the problem alone because it is self-limited and will go away, or because it's past history, there's been a footprint left behind which won't get worse, but is some scar tissue. If it isn't limited, we can try to remove it. If we can't, we can try to stop it going worse. And if we can't, we've got to slow it down. And what I'm going to say is that in sarcoidosis, it's ideal for this sort of separation, in that each of these 5 groups is represented, and we intend to develop clarity of goal by working out exactly in which category each patient does lie, to set out how we should be addressing this. Now, we do this in our thinking less formally, and you've seen that work out in the case, but we do need to enhance our ability to separate out treatment goals and to work out when to use higher dose therapies and when simply to protect the lungs with civilized treatment. Now, Phil, I know you've got your hand on the button at this stage, but I believe I'm still at less than 8 minutes, so I will.
You can carry on, Professor Wells.
Very good. So now I'm going to show you 3 pictures. Sarcoidosis, is it one disease or is it many? And I think anyone can see, if you look where I'm indicating in the areas of abnormality, that there are radical differences in how the disease looks. And this is extraordinary in sarcoid, because you might as well have separate diseases. The differences in sarcoid are much greater than differences between disorders that we view as separate disorders. And so we've set out with a worldwide Delphi exercise. Nishant, Sujal, Desai, and Vasilis has been a key person as well. 28 countries, 146 participants, to agree on separate entities on CT as a new framework for future pivotal research. Because once we know this, and there was in fact agreement on 7 entities, with further discussion to follow, I expect there might be 10 structural entities that look very different. We can start to see whether different genetic predilections and different triggers are relevant to these very, very, very different looking processes that we are calling sarcoidosis. And if we can distill this, we can start to actually treat triggers that might be driving sarcoidosis. And this would be a very distinct approach from what we do currently. And finally, I should close with a word or two. I'm approaching 10 minutes now. A word or two about cardiac sarcoidosis. Vasilis has been extraordinary in developing the program, and there will be a large prospective observational study. What I will say to close, someone in the chat said, I think about cardiac sarcoid, that some London hospitals don't have multidisciplinary practice. I think I'd like to tell you almost everyone in the world doesn't with cardiac sarcoidosis. And we have a very exciting study, quite a large group, establishing, I believe, and we've just about finished, what happens when you bring into the same room 6 different skills in the diagnosis and management of cardiac sarcoidosis. That will do me, Phil.
Thanks, Athol. That was a great talk, and just highlights some of the various aspects of research. In the interest of time, I'd like to invite Henry Shelford to join. I know he's been lurking in the background rather than joining. And as I'm sure all of you know, Henry is the trustee chairperson of Sarcoidosis UK, and he's going to give us a bit of an insight into what research Sarcoidosis UK are focused on or hoping is going to happen.
Thanks, Philip, and great to see you. Great to see you, Athol. And essentially, I was looking through some of the names of people here. It's lovely to see some names of people I recognise. Obviously, Jackie, Lane's group, and Penny, people who jumped out. Too many to really mention. Right. So my piece is about the research that Sarcoidosis UK is instrumental in, and I have slides. Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, they've come up now, Henry.
Okay, perfect, because I actually can't see what you can see, so good. Right. So at Sarcoidosis UK, we have 4 main pillars in what we're doing. Information, support, research towards the cure, and awareness. And we've always said our primary goal is the focus to find a cure. It's funding research that makes a difference. And we do the information, support, and awareness until then. The goal is to put the charity out of business so that we all go home. And it's always been our most significant investment. And even when we didn't have actually the income to support research, we funded research. We've ended up being one of the world's leading investors, which I think, as Athol has indicated, is a lot to do with the fact that there hasn't been a lot going on. We persuaded a doubling of our investment via the British Lung Foundation. So we put in 60k, they put in 60k. Prior to our arrival, whilst they said they were doing it, they really weren't doing very much, and it was something that sort of worked for both parties, and we were actually very, very grateful for it. It also enabled us to piggyback the extremely good research team at the British Lung Foundation, who know and understand what research is happening, what's happening next, what looks like a good research project, what doesn't. And at that point in our evolution, we really wanted that. So it was absolutely winning. Together, we've invested over £500,000 in sarcoidosis research. This is the research. So the actual total is 632,000, with us just slightly more because there's some stuff we've done individually. So Hull York Medical School in 2015 with Dr. Simon Hart. The main research there was into the monocyte CDR200R. So recent research shows a lack of it in granulomas, and a lack of it means more information. So learning about it, and actually to go back to what Athol just said, the importance of finding triggers in sarcoidosis, that has been absolutely critical to our research and what we're focused on. When we're interested in finding a cure and understanding where those sort of triggers, where those things that can make a change are, is what we need to know. In 2016, Dr. Molyneaux, combination of Imperial and Papworth, and this is actually again to what Vasilis was just talking about, cardiac involvement, and recognizing how important cardiac involvement is in sarcoidosis, and also it's a leading cause of death, So testing essential. And this was an investigation into non-invasive testing of cardiac sarcoidosis. 2017 is University of Manchester, Dr. Stephen Fowler, and this is breath analysis. And this is not whether or not you've used floss the past day, but it's actually a really an interesting new frontier on in research. So previously, and you can see a lot of our research is looking into a single compound. Breath analysis is different in terms of it's looking at the breath and what's in it, and so looking at multiple compounds and their presence and multiple aspects of your breath, and comparing that to the norm, and then seeing, is there something different with people with sarcoidosis? And so it's a really interesting investigative study, and with the game finding us new targets to look at for a therapy. Like what is there that's different? Can we understand it? Can we change it? 2018, those that are sharp-eyed amongst you will notice that there's no project, and that's because when we went through it with the British Lung Foundation, it was an agreement that there wasn't a project that was worth backing. So, you know, it is incredibly important we do research, but it's incredibly important that we only do good research. We have limited funds, and if we have to wait a little while to make sure the project's fantastic, then we'll wait a little while. You know, there's no point wasting money going towards something that isn't taking us towards a cure or isn't going to fundamentally make a difference. And I have to say that the British Lung Foundation, their research team, obviously us like together, making sure that's the case has been a very wonderful thing. At the same time, we were very interested in mTOR, and that was because, I hope no one's too squeamish, that was because the University of Vienna did some testing on mice, and they were able, with mTOR, to create granulomas in lungs, and it's never happened before, and so the ability to change that, and the suggestion that that was a potential trigger in sarcoidosis, very important. And actually I have to say in 2018 really disappointed that we didn't get something there. And so we worked with a number of partners on projects to try and get an mTOR one over the line. And Dr. Simon Hart's is particularly interesting because it's using the antibiotic azithromycin, which is very inexpensive, very well tolerated. By inexpensive, I feel like it's like 6p or something. And it's used for transplant patients, for example, we'll take it for decades. And so looking into that and how it impacts people in mTOR. So that is an actual patient test, people with sarcoidosis taking it. And I think, you know, our role is, well, research in many respects is, you know, you're throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping to get the bullseye at some point. And it's that, and it's also bricks on bricks on bricks on bricks. So you're building up towards something, and ideally doing both at the same time, where you're learning and potentially finding out something very important. And so you can see how that's so important for us. And talking of sort of bricks on bricks, so University of Southampton, Professor Donna Davies and Dr. Mark Jones, I have to say that I had to read this thing like 10 times to understand it. So hopefully the summary I give you will make sense. This bit, it's a 3D sarcoidosis lung cell image. And what that means is a collection of lung cells on which you can do experiments. So they're more structured than, say, just in a Petri dish. It gives us two really important things. So no one's done it before. To create this 3D model, very important. Specifically, they're going to look into the scarring of lungs. So if we can understand why lungs are scarred via sarcoidosis, we can obviously completely change the impact of the disease. But it also provides us with the 3D, so they're going to do that testing themselves, but we also then have the 3D model. So for future research, that's then available to people. So it's both a stepping stone as well as an investigation into something that might provide us with an important focus for treatment. And then the one we've very recently is at the University of Oxford with Dr. Molyneaux. This objective, so you can see very specific focus, the contribution of Th17 cells and IL-34 into fibrogenesis and sarcoidosis. So again, a very clear target to see if we can find something which has potential for a therapy. Dr. Molyneaux is fantastic for many reasons. But one, like when I very first got involved with sarcoidosis, when I had sarcoidosis afterwards, I went and did a big fundraiser. I climbed up most of Everest and held the world's highest formal dinner party. I did my first negotiation with British Lung Foundation, had them very kindly, generously double the money, and Dr. Molyneaux got the money. So it's wonderful to sort of see that continuing. And that's where we're at. There has been some big news, though, in terms of our partnership. So the British Lung Foundation, Asthma UK have combined, and they are now Asthma plus Lung UK. And recently we got the news that they no longer want to have a partnership with us on sarcoidosis research and funding, which is something, to be honest, when we heard that this was happening, we're like, okay, there's a good chance that it's going to be the end of a beautiful relationship, one which has been great, and we obviously understand their reasons. So we now need to go it alone. And the good news is, to be honest, it's really worked out pretty well. We are now a substantially larger charity. I had to do the maths. It'd be something like 50 times in terms of our income, and we're much bigger. We have obviously staff. We've built up, and a number of people here are on our clinical board. We now have the knowledge and ability to actually evaluate research projects and do them. Now, previously we had a problem because we really couldn't afford to do a serious piece of research. Takes around 3 years. It's about 120 grand, and it's too much. We weren't in a place to do that. We could do 60, so that worked out. Our funds have increased. Actually, with COVID, we weren't able to invest last year, so we've got a little buffer, so we are able to fund, to continue to fund, and we do now have the structure and the knowledge and the people, number of kind people here to participate to make sure that our research that we fund is good. We wouldn't have been able to do it. We knew we weren't able to do it when we started this. So it's like the timing's worked out. We obviously need your help though, right? Like we get no government funds. It's entirely donations and fundraising. So you're the reason we've been able to do this. For people who've donated today, thank you. You're in that case specifically the reason. And everyone, please consider donating, consider fundraising. We've got lots of great events and things for you to get involved with, and just get in touch with the office. We do also have some other sort of big news. So in the final stages, we thought, yeah, sorry, we'll tell you anyway. So you'll see an official announcement, hopefully in the near future, which is that we're doing something with the Royal College of GPs. Something that I experienced and a lot of people experience is a real challenge with their GP not understanding sarcoidosis, both in the ongoing treatment and in the diagnosis. So for me, in the diagnosis stage, I mean, I just got passed from pillar to post. I had antibiotics, I think 4 or 5 times. I had to say to them, like, you know, this is the whatever 4th time, 5th time. If it doesn't work, like, you know, definition of madness, doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. I want to be referred, and I shouldn't, you know, shouldn't have to be that strong when I'm feeling so weak, right? And so education in the GP area is incredibly important. GPs have to do continual professional development to maintain their accreditation to stay GPs, and the Royal College organises CPD for them. So the cost to the GP is free. We pay for it and pay for its construction. The college will only work with people where they see there's a need. We've proved to them that there is a need. They've accepted that, and we're just discussing exactly what it is we're going to do with them. It'll take around 6 months before it is created and GPs can start to use it, but it is us hitting that remit of changing what it means to have sarcoidosis and advocating, and in this case, building awareness in the GP environment. It's an important thing. Last slide is the thank you again. No government funding, none of it's possible without you. Really isn't. It's like it just really isn't. Everyone's generosity makes it possible. Do get in touch. That's it. So I'm passing back.
Thanks, Henry.
Great to be here, and wonderful day.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. It's great. It's great to see the progress you're making, and it's exciting times for the charity stepping out on their own to issue these research awards. You know, the best of luck to you. You funded some great work, and everyone should be really, you should be really proud at the charity. So I think that's a great oversight of what we at the Brompton are trying to achieve, what's trying to be achieved globally, and what Sarcoidosis UK are driving forwards. It's exciting times for research in sarcoidosis. It is my take-home message from all of that. And thank everybody for their hard work, and all the patients who not only donate, but donate their time to research as well. So I'll hand back over to Vasilis, who's going to round us all off. Only a mere 13 minutes late, so that's pretty good going, Vasilis.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Athol. I would like to bring the event to a close. Thank you, everyone, for participating. It has been a tiring day, but I'm very happy to have designed it and gone ahead with it. And I think it does worth for all the patients to have similar days like this. Please, you will receive feedback questionnaire. Please let us know whether you want us to change anything in the future to make this better for you. We will continue to hold regular events for you, so that we increase the engagement, and we try to improve your education as well as ours in a way. Athol, over to you for a last point.
Thank you, Vasilis. You've ambushed me, as you're rather inclined to do, but I'd like to close by congratulating you. So I think your vision has played out beautifully, and also to congratulate Sarcoid UK also. So hopefully we have a tradition in place that will lead to many such days in future. You must be exhausted. I feel as fresh as a daisy, though, watching from the sidelines. So thank you again from everyone. Thank you also to Sarcoidosis UK. It's actually very enjoyable to take part in these events, and I look forward to the next one. So good evening and good night.
Bye-bye.